Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're coming in from. Welcome, welcome. How y'all doing today? Bright, beautiful day, wherever you are. Tell me about it. Let me know what's happening, how that weather is, whether or not it's sunny or bright or rainy or cloudy. I love talking about the weather here in Detroit. It's cloudy, but it's going to be in the low 70s today. I can't tell you how many people I run into who are saying to me, "Do you think this is it? Is spring, summer finally here? Do we have it?" And it's amazing to me because I don't know how it's been where you are, but here in Detroit, we had almost a non-existent winter. It was very, very mild. So many people I know didn't even pull out, the snow plows or anything. And I really like the changing seasons. I like to know when, okay, it's winter right here, it's cold, it's snow, what have you, and then it's spring, and you can tell, and then summer, it be hot, and then we rolling into the fall. I like the changes of seasons, but these days, who knows? Well, welcome again. Please say hello. Uh, we're going to have a good time today. Got a great lesson. Want to really, talk about this subject. I'm very excited about it. Want to welcome you. And, big time in Detroit just a few days ago. If you hadn't heard, though I don't know many people who didn't know this, but the NFL draft was in Detroit. It was fabulous. Over 300,000 people. It was jam packed. It was wonderful. The city was great. It was brilliant here. The weather was pretty good. It cooperated. And so that was cool. So if you were here for the draft or watched it on television or even maybe was down in that excitement, just let me know. It was fabulous. Good morning, Dr. Pierre. How you doing? Okay, stormy, and then in the 80s. I understand that's how the weather be. We never can tell what's going to happen. When is it going to happen? Say hello. I see people coming in. Thank you so much for joining. Did you notice that music I was doing in the beginning? I'm still working with it. I'm going to see what it is. It was kind of like a rock music, but what I'm doing is I'm planning to create my own music. I'm going to have it soon. If you all have any suggestions for the kind of music that I should be putting out there, let me know. Uh, if you have questions today, I'd love for you to put them in the chat. We'd love to answer them. We've got a great subject today, and I want to get started with that. So, how you all doing? So, today, if you all are just joining, attention, nonprofit leaders, especially. Do you think perhaps you might be unknowingly sabotaging your organization's success because you're still clinging, still using, still doing some ineffective strategies? Because in today's world, things are so rapidly changing, and the need of people and what's happening in our world is going up and up and up. The demand is so high. It's so very critical that your nonprofit is adapting and evolving to meet the needs of your community, the social mission that you're about. And so, as a leader, I think it's always important to kind of step back and assess what your current practices are. If you're truly serving your organization's mission and goals. And let me tell you, it doesn't mean that you haven't been doing things right. It's always good to stop and assess and wonder. Now, are some of the things that I'm doing still in step with what's happening today, what's relevant? The practices that I'm using today, are they going to matter? And will they meet the ever increasing demand that my organization is facing? So that's what we're going to do today. And nonprofits, if you're in a nonprofit, I'd love to hear, just say yes in the chat. If you're head of a nonprofit in a senior position, play a leadership role. Oop, lost one of my earrings. I knew that was going to happen. It's one of my favorite earrings, but it's kind of loose on the end. But anyway, we're going to keep right on going. So this is a new style. Half, half we go. All right. Stay focused, Dr. Geneva. Okay. I was talking about nonprofits. And if you're a leader in a nonprofit, let me know in the chat. Nonprofits, they're everyday part of our life. Did you know that $2 trillion annually nonprofits put in the economy and employ over 12 million people? And they are everywhere. You might have been born in a hospital that was a nonprofit. You might have learned how to swim at the Y. Maybe you grew up in Girl Scouts like I did. Maybe you enjoy art in your community or going and listening to music at a fabulous organization. All of these different organizations, business organizations, schools, universities, associations, all of these different organizations, different aspects of our life are in the nonprofit world. From that community hospital to the life skills that you learn through local organizations, nonprofits do shape our experience and make a lasting impact. And as a nonprofit leader or in a leadership role, your decisions and actions really have the power to drive positive change and improve lives. But as we know, with these challenges that are happening today, with limited resources, it's important to identify and figure out how we can be the most effective that we can be in doing our job. And that's why I'm excited, really, to share this stop doing this list. Those things that perhaps are common practices that I want you to stop. I want you to reevaluate or just let go of to stay ahead of that curve so that you'll be the most effective leader, be the leader that you can be, that wonderful, vibrant individual who is creating incredible impact. And because these organizations are so important, the leadership that you bring matters. For those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Dr. Geneva, top leadership voice here on LinkedIn, and on a mission to teach and empower leaders to lead with greater impact, success, and joy. Many of you know my story, that I started my career in the nonprofit world, and decades later, I'm still in it, though in a different way. I started my career in a position in a nonprofit that was at the lowest level, and experienced all kinds of um, meeting people, working with community needs, going to community meetings, bringing people together in coalitions and collaboratives and dealing with human needs. Any social issue you talk about, from homelessness to lack of jobs to adult well being, you name it, I've dealt with that issue in my nonprofit life. And one of the things that has been really clear throughout my decades of experience is that the leadership that we provide when we're working in the nonprofit world is so critical, because with a single action, with the decisions we make, with the directions we take with our organizations, we can really impact lives. We can make a difference. And so, because nonprofits, our bottom line is that social mission, that charity, that beneficial um, thing to happen in communities and with people is so critical. The insights and action steps that we take matter. And what I want to talk to you today about is how you can navigate the challenges before you. So let's get to it. And the first thing that I want you to stop doing as a nonprofit leader is avoiding AI. Listen, artificial intelligence is here to stay. And if you're working in a nonprofit organization, it's important for you to figure out how you can use AI to increase your productivity and achieve greater impact. And it is possible. Let me tell you, if you, particularly with those things that are routine or you repeat, like how many times do you give a report to your board or a group of volunteers? How many times do you report on data or use data? Do you need to make a case with your donors? What about the needs in your community? What about the demographics of the people that you serve? There are so many ways that you can use artificial intelligence, AI, to help you in your nonprofit, and you need to stop avoiding it. I feel so passionately about the need for us as nonprofit leaders to become experts in AI and use it to our benefit for the good of our community and the good of our organizations, that I'm going to be presenting you a series of conversations and information and lessons on AI in the upcoming months. But clearly, one of the things nonprofit leaders need to do, you need to find out about AI. If you ain't using it, start using it. You can create your own. Everyone's heard about Chat GPI, chat, the chat. And you can Chat GPT, and you can create your own GPTs tailored to your organization. And it's really simple. And in the upcoming months, I'm going to show you how to do it. But the bottom line is reframe your mindset, stop fighting the AI. It's here. And guess what? It's here to stay. And you need to stop doing it. Another thing nonprofit leaders need to stop doing is operating in isolation. Now, you've heard the term boundary spanning. Let's just talk about that for just a second. If you think about your organization, your association, your foundation, your school, your healthcare organization, and think about the people that you know, the clients you deal with, the customers, your donors, there's a group of you all. Think about that as draw a circle around those within your organization, those key players, those key stakeholders. You're within your boundaries. Well, the thing that nonprofit leaders need to do more than ever is expand those boundaries and go into reach out and connect with other circles of influence and connect, span those boundaries and connect with people in like fields and in some that are unnatural or that you wouldn't think of. When I was working with a group of um, agencies, organizations who were trying to stop lead poisoning in homes and the effect that it had on children, we went after the usual suspects to bring into the coalition: social service agencies, agencies that work with children, some of those that you would typically think about. And then it occurred to us, well, what about landlords? And what about those in the construction industry who are building homes? And so we reached out and brought them into a coalition. And for the first time, many of them had never been involved, that is, a landlord or someone who's building homes in real estate or construction, had never really been involved in a social cause where we were gathered around, where we had common interests, but we were in different fields, expanding boundaries, creating those connections and collaborations, particularly with those who might be considered unnatural or unusual allies, is something that nonprofit is a direction and a practice that nonprofit leaders need to pick up. So stop operating in isolation. Another practice that I invite you as a nonprofit in a leadership role, nonprofit as a leader in a nonprofit. You know what I'm talking about. If you out there working in the nonprofit and you got some leadership role, whether you number one or you're in senior management, you play an important role. And I'd like you to stop looking for your talent on the outside only. Right within your organization, you got talented people. And what I want you to do is to begin to focus at least just as much time and attention to professional development. How can you bring up those staff members, those people you work with on a day to day basis? How can you elevate their skills, the connections they have, the experiences you can offer and share, the opportunity for people within your organization right here and now to operate in different aspects of the organization? So, what I'm suggesting to you, those of you in nonprofit leadership roles, is that right within your organization, you've got talent that can be blossomed, that can be grown, that can be elevated. And I want you to stop thinking about, I've got to recruit, I need to go outside my organization to recruit talent. Another practice that I invite you as a nonprofit leader to stop doing is to, stop thinking you're going to be around forever, that you're going to live forever, that you're going to be at that organization for always. No, you're not going to be. You may have been at your organization for a long time. I was at one of my organizations for close to 25 years. And so I've been through this and I can tell you. Now, I must admit that I had 6, 7 different positions. I got to the top of the organization. And then after several years, I merged and created a new organization. But my total time at being in the United Way was 25 years. That's a long time. And throughout that process, the consideration of, well, what's going to be my exit strategy is one thing that I really didn't spend a lot of time thinking about, as much as I understand the benefit of that now. But the other part of the flip side of that coin, when we think about the inevitability of change, is what is the succession plan for you, for your position, for the people who are in your organization? Things change. And it's important for you to not only recognize that things are going to change, but that you have to be adaptable and resilient in the change that goes through and happens. So things, bottom line is, ain't things going, no matter what you're working for, no matter what organization you're working for, no matter what good you're doing, there is change coming. Change is constant. So, nonprofit leaders, be masters of change. Learn to embrace the change. Learn what change is. What are the ins and outs of it? What does it mean? How can you manage it? And if any of you are in the midst of it and really don't know what to do about the change, give me a call. We can talk about that. But you need to become a change master, understanding that it's going to always be there, that you in your position, you need to think about what your next steps are going to be, whether you're a leader, a senior manager, an executive, VP, no matter what you are. What's your exit strategy? And how are you planning for the development of others, particularly if you're in a leadership position? What's the succession plan? And that every single day, things are going to change in your organization. Listen, if you're finding some value in these strategies, or if you want help with any of them that I've already talked about, or the ones that are upcoming, let me know. Join me, book an appointment with me. Love to have that conversation. Okay. Now, this one is one of my favorite practices. I want you, as a leader in the nonprofit world, to stop doing. And that is, you think that volunteers know what you're talking about all the time. I have sat in so many meetings where leaders will talk about their services, talk about impact, talk about the vision that they see. And they're talking up here, they're using organizational lingo that nobody understands. They're assuming that volunteers understand processes, the intake process, and how we measure impact, and budgeting, assuming that volunteers, for example, understand fund accounting. There are so many things that our volunteers, the people we work with, either in direct service or our policymakers, don't. If you're an executive, if you're on that side of the nonprofit world, there's so many things that our volunteers, they don't understand, that they're not aware of, that they don't on a day-to-day basis deal with. So part of the role that we need to play as a nonprofit leader on the executive staffing side of the partnership is to explain, be very definitive in our explanations, become great storytellers, be so that we can paint the picture, and to take time to step into their shoes and relate to volunteers as if they were not with your organization on a day-to-day basis, which most times they aren't. So I want you to stop assuming that they know what you're talking about. And you may say to me, well, Dr. Geneva, okay, all right, but why is this important? Well, it's important because of the partnership that exists between staff and volunteers in the nonprofit world, which is a relationship unique to those in nonprofitdom. And it's that relationship that really can, when it's good, when it's right, when it flows, when it's coordinated, when it's all of that, you can't touch it. It has an incredible ability to change lives, to change directions of organizations, to change policy, to speak to policy, to advocate and make things better for the people that we're serving. That relationship, that partnership between staff and volunteers. So the responsibility that you as a staff person in a leadership position in a nonprofit have is to make sure that you can clarify, be understandable, and make those explanations and bring your volunteers, your policymakers along with you on the leadership journey. Let me know what you think about that. Give me a comment or two. Do you believe that the partnership between staff and volunteers is a crucial one, and that on the staff side, we as staff leaders need to take some time and make sure that we're empathetic, we listen, and we work to understand and help our volunteers understand what the deal is, because they ain't with us every day. Let me know how you feel about that in the comments. Now, nonprofit leaders, what I want you to stop doing, you get them capes on, them Superwoman capes or them Wonder Woman capes. I want you to stop wearing them. What do I mean by that? Stop trying to do everything everywhere for everybody all the time. You have to realize that you can easily be burned out. And if you be burned out, that's going to affect everything and everyone, whatever it is that you're trying to do in your organization, because leaders set tone for the organization. And if you are burned out, if you're exhausted, if you're overwhelmed, if you're trying to do everything yourself, that's not good for the organization. It has a ripple effect on those working with you, on those collaborating with you. So don't think that you can do everything. I can't tell you how many leaders I'll run into who are doing not only their job, their assignment, their position, but as I talk to them, I hear they doing 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, 8 other roles and responsibilities. Stop it. Do your job. Do it well. Learn how to delegate. Learn how to have trust in your team, your staff, the people who work with you, your volunteers, and take off your capes. I know how it is now. I mean, trust. I've been in this was a tough one for me because, me and my other baby boomers, colleagues, I know if any of you are out there and you hearing me, you know what I'm talking about. We be riding that white horse, going out there trying to change the world. Okay. I'm not telling you don't use your superpowers that you have of, authenticity and integrity and passion and smarts and strategy and knowing how to solve problems and raise money and all those super duper powers that you have. I ain't telling you to stop them being a superpower person using those superpowers. What I am saying is that you have the cape of Wonder Woman that you can do everything all the time by yourself and everything rests on your shoulders. I'm saying take off that cape and just be you. And remember that you have got to take care of yourself and avoid burnout at all costs. Another thing that you as a nonprofit leader, as a person in a leadership position in a school, a healthcare organization, a social agency, you got to learn how to measure impact. It's not about counting and the numbers. Now, hear me. Them numbers is important. You got to report them. But today, the bigger issue is what kind of impact are you having? It's not about how many senior meals you delivered. It's more about, are seniors now, as a result of what you do and your actions, able to live independently? Are they able to take care of themselves better? Do they have better nutrition? Okay. So we've always got to be about the impact, what we're changing, what is different as a result of our organization being in the room, being in the space, existing. What's the difference? And today, there are so many incredible ways that we can measure impact, that we can talk about impact, that we can, you as a nonprofit leader need to be a master storyteller. I've talked about this before. You must be able to relate what it is that you're doing in ways that people can understand and embrace and can visualize how you're changing lives. And remember now, this isn't just a nice thing to do. This is what donors want to hear now. That's what funders are interested in. It's about how the return on investment is creating this impact, is making a difference in people's lives. And what is it that you're doing that differentiates your services from the next organization? There's hundreds of thousands of organizations serving children. How many schools do we have in our community? How many foundations are there? How many hospitals, how many Ys, in YMCA, YWCA and organizations like that all over, all trying to help. What distinguishes you? What's your impact? What's your story? What difference are you making? So every step of the way, you have to be challenging yourself, your team, the people you work with, your volunteers, to be talking about measuring, articulating impact. I also want you, as a leader in the nonprofit world, to stop thinking that there might be some decisions that don't have a financial impact, or, oh, we can do a little bit of that. It won't affect the budget. Listen, every decision that you make has a financial impact, period. And so it's absolutely key for you as a leader working in the nonprofit world to have your game up regarding finances. Know what they mean, know how to read a balance sheet. Understand that when you put together a budget, it matters. You're not just playing games here, that in fact, you understand that the decisions, even though our bottom line is a social mission, is a charitable cause, every single decision we make has a financial implication. I always, talk to particularly young leaders who come to me and say, "Oh, I want to solve the world. I'm going to put together a nonprofit. Here's what I'm going to do." And I say, "Great." I encourage them, go do your dream. And I want to ask you how you're going to finance it. And they'll stop and give me this look. And I'll say, "Yes, it's so important for us to finance, to be able to understand that these dreams require resources. And everything we do in carrying out these dreams is going to have a financial impact. And so we must become savvy masters of understanding the financial implications of all of our decisions that we make. Here's something that, and this is not my, I don't know if I mentioned I was going to give 10. Okay, this is the 10th strategy that I want to leave with you. The 10th thing that I want to say that you need to stop doing, and this is avoiding difficult conversations. We need to be, transparent in what we do and how we interact and how we work with others within our organizations. And if, if clients aren't happy, if we're not serving customers and we're getting the kind of negative feedback, if we're running a deficit or it looks like we're going to come into some financial challenge, we got to speak it. We got to tell it. We need to stop keeping those things that are difficult or negative quiet and keep them to ourselves. We need to be able to talk about these as a problem to be solved, as an opportunity. If we work this, if we take this problem, perhaps we can turn it into an opportunity. But we have to have those so-called difficult conversations. If you've got people in your organization that aren't good for your organization, we have to find ways to help them find a better fit somewhere else outside of your organization. We've got to have those conversations because the work that we do is so critical, is so important. The organizations that we lead matter. And so we must have the conversations that are uncomfortable, that we really don't want to have. I can't tell you how many nonprofit organizations I've gone in to help. And I'm still doing that. Many of my clients, I do the one-to-one coaching with nonprofit leaders and leaders who are heads of businesses. And I also work with organizations, their boards, and the executives who lead those organizations on various organizational issues like strategic planning, like board development. And there are too many organizations who, as I'll be talking to the board or the volunteers, express disappointment in where the organization is going, or surprise at something that happened in the organization and they weren't aware of it. That shouldn't be the case. If you are have that amazing, extraordinary, wonderful partnership with your volunteers, which you must have in order to survive in the future, they need to be aware of the issues facing your organization, good or bad, positive or negative. And oftentimes that's difficult because you think, oh, this is going to look like I messed up. And maybe you did mess up. We do that. We do mess up. But and keeping it quiet, let me tell you, keeping it quiet, keeping it close to the chest may work in the short term, but it does not in the long term. It does not if you want to take your organization higher, if you want to grow, and if you want that next best position. It doesn't help to hide it. So having these difficult conversations is something we must do, and we need to stop avoiding them, and go on and talk about it. So those are the 10 things, those are the practices that I want you to stop doing as nonprofit leader. But listen, I had to add this bonus one because this is something that I've been seeing too much of lately. And this practice that I want you to stop doing is, as a nonprofit, and I want to say this probably most directly to those of you who are heading or leading nonprofits. You're in that number one role, that executive director, CEO, president. You in that top spot, or you aspire to be. I'm saying this directly to you, that I want you to stop seeing your job, your numero uno job, your main thing, your main squeeze, as implementing the mission of your organization only. You see, you're put in that position to do two most important things. One, secure resources, raise resources, the double R, resources, time, talent, treasure. And the second thing is to create that awesome, incredible, extraordinary relationship between you and your board, especially your chair. Now, we could do a whole video on this. I There are too many nonprofit leaders in that top position who I run into who are doing service. They are, you know, developing the programs, implementing the programs, working with clients, having all of this activity around everything but raising that money and resources and having extraordinary relationships, great relationship building with their board, their policy making group, and particularly the chair. And what results from that then oftentimes are deficits, not having the enough or the right resources, or challenges and, conflict with their board or their chair. Now, again, short term, folk, it might work. Going out there and developing that program that becomes, a great service delivery model. Okay, that might work in the short term, but in the long term, it's not going to get you where you want to be. It's not going to get you that effective leader. Oftentimes, particularly for leaders who work their way up in an organization or are promoted within the organization to the top position or come into an organization from the outside, oftentimes they get too consumed with service delivery or running the organization, as opposed to being the leader who sees the future, who talks about the future, who inspires resources to come to the organization, and who works lockstep, hand in glove with the board. So I want you to, now again, I've been asked about this, and this is one of the top um, issues that nonprofit leaders who ask me to work with them bring to me. That is, what my role and how do I negotiate, work with my board? How do I create that relationship? How do I keep focused on what my job should be? That is setting that direction, articulating the issues, the problems that we're trying to solve, being the master storyteller. How do I balance all of that with the day to day of the organization? That's oftentimes what nonprofit leaders come to me about. And one of the biggest things that I say is to stop viewing your role as you're there to implement the mission. Your role is bigger than that, more impactful. So, those were the 10 plus a bonus stop doing practices I wanted to teach about today. Love to hear your comments. And I see many of you in the chat. Love to Yes, indeed. So many great comments. Thank you so much. And yes, we know about AI and all of the things I've talked about. I want each and every one of you to review this list now. And if you've got questions about any of them, um, concerns, wondering how to address or what have you, please join us in Elevate Next Level Success. And I see all these comments. I'm trying to keep them so that you can see them. Listen, on a day-to-day basis, I'm sharing leadership tips on um, uh, let me get over here to the right one. Okay. I'm sharing leadership tips, success tips on a day-to-day basis at elevatenextlevelsuccess.com. Would love to see you there. Go to elevatenextlevelsuccess.com and hey, we can talk every day on a daily basis. And I want you to remember that you are an incredible leader, and only you can be that unique leader. You are that unique leader. I'm going to see you next time. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for our upcoming shows. One is going to be on AI and nonprofits. Another will be on how do you juggle being a CEO and a mom or a spouse. We're also going to have some conversation about introverted leaders. So if you're interested in any of that, come join me. See you next time. Remember, to be the leader only you can be. See you next time.